and welcome to Dear Katie, the podcast that amplifies courageous voices and real stories of resilience, healing, and hope after trauma. Inspired by the many letters Katie has received over the last 20 years, each week she interviews survivors, healers, and experts to honor their stories and explore the many paths to healing and hope. Before we begin, please know, many episodes of Dear Katie cover sensitive topics related to sexual violence, trauma, and recovery. Listen with care and take the space you need to take care of yourself. Your well-being is what matters most. Now, let's join Katie and today's guest for a conversation that matters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Dear Katie podcast. As you know, I'm Katie Koestner, your host, and along our incredible journey with each and every guest, I encourage all of our listeners just to take a moment, pull out that pen and paper or old school, type away and journal along. I feel so strongly that each and every guest is giving more and more pieces of this ginormous puzzle that we can just add to our lives and grow and try things on for size and see what they do for each of us. And Thordis is going to be such a delight. So let me share a little bit about Thordis and then turn the mic to Thordis. Thordis Elva is a writer, speaker, and activist from Iceland. Her memoir is South of Forgiveness. She co-authored it with her perpetrator of sexual assault, and it's been published in 14 countries, and the accompanying TED Talk has been viewed over 10 million times. Her books, films, and plays have won various awards, and she was elected Woman of the Year for her contributions to gender equality. In 2017, Thordis became one of the frontrunners of the Me Too movement, accepting the Person of the Year award on behalf of the entire movement. She specializes in violence prevention and has shaped national and international policy on digital rights and gender equality. Thordis has given talks at the United Nations, the European Council, and the EU, to name just a few. She is the founder and managing director of the Nordic Digital Rights and Equality Foundation, which works toward making the internet a better place, let's hope an amazing place, and is also a clinical hypnotherapist with her own practice. And I will not say the name of the city because I will not pronounce it correctly, but she can share. She is the mother of 3 children, 2 of whom were given a less than 1% chance of survival, and a very old, very deaf, and very loud cat. So welcome, Thordis. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be
here.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, perfect. So I guess I always say, where were you born and what was like the early childhood like for you?
Well, I was born in Iceland. Hence my name, which is Thordis Elva Thorvaldsdóttir.
That sounds much more better. That's much better.
You just told people to bring out their notebooks and their pens, so that's something to jot down. Good luck with
just
that.
Rewind just 10 seconds a few times and practice.
Oh, it gets better. It gets better.
I hate to stereotype, but Thordis, it sounds like out of some James Bond movie. It's like we've been finding you in some.
Well, wait until you hear what it means, because Icelandic names are quite epic and kind of pulled from our sagas and our heritage, like our Viking heritage. So my name means Thunder Goddess, River Fairy, Daughter of the Protected One. So,
oh my gosh, that is magic right there.
It does sound like I should probably be on your Dungeons and Dragons team, or at the very least be good with a bow and arrow or something.
Absolutely.
To name some of the lore.
It sounds like you should be either that or just go really old school and put you on top of a float on the Macy's parade, so everyone, you could lead the whole show in New York City.
Well, thank you. Yes, Thunder Goddess will show up with her hammer to wield. But no, yes, I am absolutely very Icelandic, born in Reykjavik and of Icelandic descent some 32 generations back, so we don't get more Icelandic than this. We can actually trace our ancestry back to the first settlers, which makes us quite unique on a worldwide stage in that sense. We even have an app that we can trace our, relations to everyone in this country. It's been featured in like global media and made fun of as something, of a hookup app, so you don't like accidentally hook up with your cousin or something. But that could happen. That could happen in this country, I will say. So I'm born here, but I had quite the international upbringing. My dad was studying and doing his internship in Sweden and in the States, so I moved back and forth quite a bit. And I think it resulted in a bigger worldview than I would have cultivated in this small island that I proudly call my home. But I am glad and grateful that I had an opportunity to experience, a bigger world than I would have had in Reykjavik. So I have childhood memories from New Hampshire and from Malmö in Sweden and various places that shaped me as a child.
Did you have siblings too?
Yes, I do. Yes, I have a brother and a sister, but there's quite a big age discrepancy between us. So there's 16 years between my sister and my brother. I'm in the smack in the middle, so 8 years younger than my sister and 8 years older than my brother. And my mom used to make fun that it took her 8 years to like just gather the courage to go again. So
well, she seemed to gather it.
I don't blame her now that I have a few offspring of my own. It is a brave act, motherhood.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, I know we'll get to it, but we're both moms of twins. So that in and of itself is quite something. You hear the rare ones that have 3 or 4, and I'm like, 2 is plenty.
Yes.
At one time.
It's quite the elite club, being a twin parent. And quite a costly membership, but we wouldn't want it any other way, would we?
No. I think we can talk about it for a second. I don't know what it did for you, but because of the work I do too, and I'm sure likewise, I so desperately wanted to believe that we could shape shift attitudes and behavior with some nurturing. And then now I'm like, nature, they're born this way. Like, good luck. We just need to start doing the, genetic unwiring that might be necessary to undo some bias sometimes. They're, had the same thing and they think completely differently.
It is quite humbling to realize how little you can impact a child in the sense of like the hardware. Like, they are born with a distinct personality and a sense of self. And the sooner you realize that as a parent, that like, it's not your job to change the hardware. It's your job to like get out of their way and help them grow their own set of very distinct wings. And it's not your job to help them become the person they were meant to be, which is such a harmful cliche, I feel. Because that kind of supposes that you have an idea of who they're supposed to be. But the thing is, they already are the glorious person they were born to be. And it's our job to just cheer them on, get out of their way, and just create an environment where they can explore, every facet of this glorious life that we get on Earth. This glorious, breathtaking, short little lifespan that we're allotted.
Yeah. I think that's the key also, though, Thordis, to even just undoing bias is when we start to recognize every one of us in the body and soul we got. It's just accept it and bless it and treasure it and like let the uniqueness come out and thrive in whatever way, as long as it's not doing evil or harmful things. But nonetheless, I totally agree. Can we also talk, did you go to university? Did you study? How did you transition from high school into all the academia world?
Right. So in Iceland, we have a bit of a different system. So we don't have high school per se. We have like elementary school, 10 years. So start at 6, you're done at 16. And then you can choose whether or not to go on to something of a junior college, which used to be 4 years, but was recently shortened to 3. And then after that, you have a choice of whether or not to continue to university. So we have kind of a 3-tier education system. And so yes, after elementary school, I did go on to do this junior college education. And that's where my life took a very sharp turn, which my book is about. Self-forgiveness, because I was quite the late bloomer. When I was 16 and like started junior college, I couldn't relate to my girlfriends that had all like had crushes on boys. I was like, I do not see what you guys are talking about. Like I found them to be positively primitive creatures with their like pulling on my bra strap and like just, you know, their spitting contests, and I was just appalled until this.
Boys are so immature. I hear you.
Yes.
You have the hunt. The hunter part of you should have come back. The hunter goddess part. It's a lot of work to find a good one.
Yeah, no, I was like, I'd rather pass until this Australian exchange student walked into my junior college with just, you know, worldly ways and maturity about him, and I fell head over heels for him, and it felt very grown up, you know. And I remember, like, you know, loving the feeling of being held in his gaze, because I felt like a woman in his gaze, and I'd never felt that way before. It was such a transition from childhood to like adulthood, or womanhood in this case. So when there was a ball, there was like a Christmas dance. It was one of the first like opportunities to you know, lay your hair down and kind of like mingle with your fellow junior college mates. I felt so adult, like I had a man to take me to the dance. Like I just felt like a woman, like a young woman. So I bought myself a new dress, and I felt like it was only suitable to take another step into adulthood by like scoring some hard alcohol, which in my case was rum. It was the only thing I could get my hands on. And being so inexperienced, I mean 16, of course all of this is behind the back of my parents, and being so inexperienced, I thought that the effects of alcohol were immediate. So allow me to demonstrate. Basically thought that I would take a sip of my rum, and if like the effects weren't instantaneous, then I was like, damn, I was born to do this. Like, have I got stamina or what?
Right.
Well,
you can hold it in.
Well, fast forward 20 minutes, and turns out I did not have stamina. So instead of like having this romantic experience of this school dance where I, you know, envisioned I'd be dancing with, you know, my man, I ended up just hugging the toilet bowl and like, you know, vomiting all over my dress. And this is where the story should end, essentially. You know, it should just be a full stop there. It should be a story of like how the first time I had hard liquor, I really didn't fare well. Like it didn't go over well for me. But there's a plot twist, because he does appear in the bathroom and scoop me up from the floor, to my pleasant surprise. And I was, in hindsight, like probably suffering from alcohol poisoning. So I was unable to, completely incapacitated. Like I was unable to move a limb or even utter a word. And I was frustrated. I thought, you know, I really wish I could thank him. Like, because this is awesome. I have my own Prince Charming who's like literally rescuing me from peril. Like this is like better than I could have hoped for. And he walks past a security guard that says we should probably call an ambulance for her, because I looked really terrible. Like I was foaming at the mouth and clearly like not, you know, in a very altered state of consciousness. And he was like, no, I know her, I'll take her home. And here I am thinking, my inner dialogue, because I couldn't partake, I couldn't talk, and I'm thinking, oh, thank God, because my dad worked at the hospital, and I thought I will be grounded for life if I'm taken to the hospital. So again, I'm really grateful and frustrated that I can't utter a word of gratitude, like a word of thanks. And he like, you know, puts me in a taxi, takes me home, fishes my keys out of my purse. Like all is going really well. And again, here's where the story should end. It should be a story about how I was rescued by my first boyfriend after getting myself into trouble. But he takes me inside, and I had a private entrance. My room was on the bottom floor, and my parents had their rooms upstairs, like in another end of the house. So it was very private, which usually was to my favor. But this time, of course, it did not work out well for me because he did take me inside, undressed me, which I thought was great because I was very happy to be out of my vomit-stained dress. But my understanding came to a screeching halt when he also removed my underwear. And then he proceeded to sexually assault me for what ended up being 2 hours. And the only reason why I know it was 2 hours is because how he positioned me on the bed. And again, I am so incapacitated, I cannot move a limb. But my mind is surprisingly clear. Like, it was kind of like being locked inside my body, which is horrific when you think about it. But I didn't even think to be scared because I was just so young and inexperienced and full of trust. I had no reason not to trust my boyfriend. But the reason why I know it was quite a lengthy affair is because my head was turned towards my alarm clock, which glowed in the dark, and there were 2 dots in the middle that kind of blinked every second. And just to stay sane and kind of distract myself from like the pain and betrayal of what was happening, I counted the seconds, and that's how I know there's like 7,200 seconds in 2 hours. But after that night, obviously, our relationship did not survive the events of that night. So we went our separate ways without addressing what had happened. And I certainly didn't put words on it that were in any way correct. Like, I didn't define this to myself as rape or sexual assault for quite some time. I want to say a year or two for various reasons. My own stereotypical thinking kind of limited how I was able to frame a perpetrator. Like, I'd seen films and TV shows where it's like a masked lunatic, like, hiding in bushes or like in the backseat of your car, never your charming, eloquent, honor student boyfriend who charmed your mom. Like, it was never that person. And it certainly didn't happen in your own bed. So there are multiple like misconceptions and myths that I had to dismantle for myself before I could really see what had happened for what it was. And by that point in time, of course, he had completed his exchange program and moved back to Australia. And Australia is as far away from Iceland on the globe as geographically possible. So, I think, my kind of realization was, all right, so what happened, was abuse, but there's literally nothing I can do about it now. I mean, there's a good chance I will never see him again in my life. And of course, I didn't have any evidence still 2 years later when I'm like mature enough to face what had happened to me, if you will. So I did what I think a majority of survivors in that situation do, which is to try and move on and try and just put this behind me. And, outrunning your past can be such a taxing activity, and it can cost you so much. And it did certainly for me, because I had to develop, multiple kind of negative coping mechanisms, basically, because, standing still for too long invited too much like self-reflection and thinking about the past. So I became, an overachieving workaholic, if you will, and just never standing still long enough to kind of hear my inner dialogue, because I was still counting seconds, because I was like stuck in that trauma, which is what happens if you don't do the healing work. Then chances are that like the wound will be wide open. Time doesn't heal a wound that you don't dress. So yeah, I developed many harmful behaviors. I had an eating disorder that worsened. I had a harmful relationship with alcohol and other people and myself. So it wasn't until 9 years after the fact that I kind of hit a wall, I want to say, where I realized that I cannot go on this way. And it was an afternoon where I was feeling very torn emotionally and tattered, and I'd been arguing with a loved one. And I stormed out the door, went to a nearby cafe. I was going to doodle a notebook to calm my nerves, and outstreamed a confrontational letter to my perpetrator where I named the violence that he'd perpetrated against me and kind of placed the responsibility squarely at his feet and said, I've carried this blame and shame for long enough. Like, it was never mine to carry, and I want to free myself. And I, of course, have wondered, what made you do what you did, of course. And to tell you the truth, Katie, I did not have high expectations that I would ever get like a reply to that. Those people don't want to face up to the worst thing they've ever done. And it would have been so easy to just ignore my email. But to my big surprise, he did reply a few days later.
Yeah, before you share that part, Thordis, I was wondering, you were isolated. You described, did anyone else know? Did any of your friend group? No, nobody knew. Did you, after that night, did you guys ever hang out again? Or did you just move forward like as if it didn't happen?
Yeah. We didn't hang out in like a traditional sense.
And none of your friend group ever wondered why.
No,
so it was
like,
really.
I think what my parents and my close friends, I think what they witnessed was, me being completely shattered, and they were like, "Oh, she's going through her first heartache,"
Oh.
Because we didn't last as an item after that night.
Okay.
So they
thought it was a breakup.
They thought it was a breakup blues that I was going through, and I couldn't even, as I said earlier, like I didn't have the vocabulary to vocalize what had happened to me.
Yeah, that's not, the only thing I was worried, like, was there any context to people around you saying, like, having wonderings of what happened? And it sounds like it was plausible that you two just went your separate ways, and Mr. Perfect Australia guy, you two didn't just work. You didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the conclusion.
Okay, so now you're like 25.
Yes.
And you write this letter.
Yes, this life-altering letter.
You nail it. How did you find him?
So what I had, I started digging, because when I'd written out this letter, I thought, this is a newfound voice of mine that I think is too valuable to silence. Like, I'm not going to just shove this letter into my drawer and forget about it. Like, I really want to give this newfound voice a pair of wings. So I started digging in like my, stuff, and I found a 10-year-old Hotmail address for him, and I thought, this is such a long shot. My God, like, no, whoever uses Hotmail anymore.
I don't know.
But I decided to give it a shot, and sure enough, a few days later, his name did appear in my inbox, and I was so torn. I thought I'd prepared myself for all like the different outcomes. Like, the most likely outcome I thought would be silence. Like, he would just ignore my email. Then I thought, if he does reply, it's probably going to be like defensive. That would be a human response, to be like, to deny the context of that letter. But to my big surprise, the only thing I had not prepared for is what awaited me in that email. And it was basically an unwavering confession, where he said, I know what I did, and not a day has gone by where I haven't, thought about it and what I did. And I've, just gone over it a million times in my head. And that would be my very loud cat.
I know, I couldn't, I was like, what, you do have a loud
I'm so sorry.
I'm like, your cat sounds jealous right now. It's like, Mommy, come on.
He's 18.
Give me some attention.
He's 18 years old, and he's so deaf that he has no idea how loud he's being. Pardon my cat. But
you're fine.
But yeah, so he said basically, I insert a lifetime of apologies. Like, I don't even know if I can make this up to you in any way, shape, or form. If so, please tell me. Like, there's nothing I wouldn't do. And I thought about it for a long time, until I came to the conclusion that yes, actually there is something he can do for me. I mean, I don't think you can make it up to a survivor. Like, I don't think violence works that way, but there is something that many of us crave, and it is the answer to the $1 million question, why? Why did you do what you did to me? Like, why what about me made you feel justified in your decision to assault me? So I did pose that question, and it sparked a correspondence that lasted sporadically on and off for about 8 years, until I kind of said the things I wanted to say, asked the questions I wanted to ask, and I felt kind of like, I want to put a full stop here. I don't want to be this man's pen pal for the rest of my life. Like, that was never the plan. And I just want to stop looking over my shoulder. But then I realized that I couldn't really get closure on paper, which was a discovery I was kind of surprised by. But then again, like, if something has cut so to your core so much, it's so personal that it has like basically shaped every facet of your life, then it makes sense that closure will have to be more personal than what you can get out of an email, if that makes sense. So I suggested, what do you say we like face our past in person once and for all, so that we can then put it behind us for good and move into our future, like, not carrying this baggage for decades to come. And he was terrified, but he agreed. And just to make that very clear, I would not have suggested meeting up with someone who I feared was still perpetrating, or that was a serial offender, or anything of that nature.
How do you think you knew that part about him? I'm just curious.
Well, at that point, we had been corresponding for 8 years.
Oh, you said 8 years.
Yeah,
okay.
So 8 years of really like, diving into what that night, had meant for both of us, how it had impacted our lives consequently. And it turned out that we had lived quite parallel lives afterwards, because he too had been trying to outrun his past. He too had had harmful relationships with his body, with other people, with alcohol, with drugs. And it's not that mysterious, if you think about it, that people will need to numb themselves when they're trying to outrun something shameful, or trying to suppress, pain they don't want to sit with. But the thing is that he was doing it for understandable, justified reasons, because the blame, in fact, was his. But I was doing it as a result of the societal blame that, is put on victims, that we are made to feel ashamed, and we are made to believe that we could have somehow avoided being subject to abuse. So it ends up being a very parallel journey for victim and perpetrator, for wildly different reasons.
Were you, I guess, I know you said you were surprised, and I mean, I think you're a one-of-a-kind story to have someone apologize and sit in their own guilt the way they did with you. I just worry, I know the one-of-a-kind is like the dream we all have, that our perpetrators will come to realize the consequences and sit with it for 8 years too, Thordis. Like, I guess I'm just thinking about our listeners. I just thought, Thordis is a unique, amazing story. And I think what we can, at least maybe a little vicariously, learn what therapy it helped you. Like, where did it get you? And maybe those of us listening are going to have to find other ways to get, because we're not going to get a 8-year conversation about it from our perpetrators, especially when some are our parents, right? Or, siblings and uncles and such. So that's where I guess maybe we could talk just for a second, because then I want to get into like all the other amazing stuff you've done. But just before we transition, do you feel like, wow, I'm so glad we had this conversation, and how did it feel like every day a layer of onion was peeling off? Or like, how would you describe it? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Like, did it feel like, was it more of a roller coaster? Was it like a constant, like, wow, I never thought about this, or I never thought about that? Like, how did it feel as you were doing that 8-year journey?
Right. Thank you. Thank you for such a thoughtful question. You're right in the sense that we are quite unique, Tom and I, with regard to there not being, to my knowledge, another kind of perpetrator and victim duo that have done the type of public work we've done. to team up.
I don't think so, Thordis.
Yeah.
I've talked to like millions of people, I feel like, as have you. And I've never run into anyone. I don't think you have.
Yeah, I think we are quite alone on the global stage in the sense of being the only people to, share a TED Talk stage and to author a book together and to lecture together for the time that we did. But that's actually where we stop being unique, because if you look to the realm of restorative justice, which is alive and well all over the world,
Right, thank goodness.
Then perpetrators and victims of different type of violent crime, not just sexual violence, but certainly also sexual violence, are having conversations like Tom and I had about accountability and about, how the perpetrator has to own up to what they did and listen to their survivor describe the impact of their actions and to fully grasp the gravity of what they did. So those conversations are being had by the thousands all over the world every day. And there are some incredible organizations that are helping facilitate such conversations. In the States, Hidden Water is one, where they're doing this incredible work, where they're not just talking or facilitating conversations between perpetrators and survivors, but also family members that may be a part of that dynamic where healing has to take place. So let's say that there's a interfamilial abuse taking place, then it affects everyone in that family. So how can they break the cycle? How can they ensure they're not blaming the victim? How can they use the right terminology? How can they support each other on the healing journey? So those conversations are happening, and of course nothing can happen in the way of any type of restorative justice, conversation, or accountability processes unless the perpetrator does own up to their actions. That's the first step, to acknowledge that you did cause harm. That, of course, has to be the foundation of any conversation in that area. There's also an organization in Australia called Sakasa that's doing similar work. I think they facilitate around 2,000 conversations per year. So we're not unique in that sense, Tom and I. Perpetrators are listening to their survivors illustrate the gravity and impact of their actions, much like Tom did for me. But we did it in our own kind of unmediated way, which is not something I recommend for others. Like, it's not a cookie cutter model. Like, I'm not trying to, export my methodology as something other people should, copy at all, because there's multiple risks involved, inviting someone who's harmed you back into your life or to converse with them. And, I fully understand and respect those who are appalled by that notion and would never. And their healing journey looks differently than mine did. And that is also something I feel very strongly about, is to empower survivors to shape their own healing journey in a way that feels safe and right for them, because there is no wrong way to heal. There's just your way to heal. And if someone has stripped you of control the way that abuse does, then I feel like it's such an integral, important part of regaining control, to be in the driver's seat and to be allowed to fashion your healing journey in a way that makes sense to you and feels right for you. But to answer your question about the peeling of the onion, I heard you. Sorry, I'm being long-winded.
That's
here.
Okay.
But no, it was a difficult conversation. I'm not gonna lie. When I would pose questions around, his lack of empathy for me that night, like his how could he just switch off, the tenderness and love that, he had displayed for me, that had earned him my trust. Like, how could he just switch that off? And it was hard to receive the answers. It's hard to listen to someone say, well, I simply wasn't thinking about you, or I was simply completely apathetic, and your well-being was just not on my mind. Things like that really are so, shocking to hear from the lips of someone that you thought you were in a loving romantic relationship with, to kind of understand that like so much harm in the world is not caused by hate or, you know, ill will. It's caused by a complete lack of, you know, care and empathy, and it's apathy in a sense that can cause so much harm, and that can be such a shocking and a hard thing to sit with. So I'll say that, you know, it was a difficult conversation. That's why it was sporadic. I think, you know, for both of us, we needed time away from it. At least 2 or 3 times, it was a year and a half where we were not in contact. But something always brought us back. It was usually something on the news or some personal discovery that, you know, just shed a new light on our past, until we decided to meet up. And when we met up, it was exactly halfway, like, you know, in the middle. So halfway from Iceland to Australia, which turned out to be Cape Town in South Africa, which is a very interesting place for a meeting like this to take place, because they've done a lot of work on reconciling and understanding harmful actions in the past as a nation. So it was quite a profound backdrop to the work that we did during that time, to kind of put into context our own past and what it meant for our future happiness.
Yeah, amazing. I thought of one other question, Thordis, that comes up with, you know, some of my other interviews. Was there ever a point at which you had a sense of anger or rage?
Oh God,
you know,
yes.
Okay.
Oh my God,
like,
yes. I mean, there were years where I just wanted to make him squirm and suffer.
Okay.
Oh God, yes.
I think it just, here's why I bring that up, Thordis. Like, I think, you know, here in the United States, we have, there's a population or groups of people of certain faith backgrounds where the emphasis on survivorship centers around forgiveness. And then they leapfrog right over anger, justifiable rage, and they are forced to like take in the, you know, the spirit and be generous with your heart. And you know what,
to me that sounds like secondary wounding. That sounds like more abuse to me.
Right. Well, I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
No, I think that does so much harm. Thank you, Katie, for bringing that up. But I think that does so much harm, because then again, you're stripping the survivor of their agency. And again, you're forcing them, you know, you're kind of removing control from them, because you're trying to manipulate and dictate their emotional journey. And that is just incredibly detrimental. And besides, exactly. Yeah. And besides, neither healing nor forgiveness work that way. It's not something you can force. You can't force it. So, no, I think that kind of like spiritual bypassing, which I believe it to be called, is it misses the point entirely. And also, I think forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood concepts in human society. So many people think it's about laying their blessing over the hurt that was caused, and I think it's absolutely the opposite. Like, I think forgiveness underlines the hurt that was caused, because if there wasn't a hurt at the center, there would be nothing to forgive, right? And absolutely, it has nothing to do with the perpetrator per se. It is a way for the survivor to empower themselves with a decision to stop being tied to this point in their past. Because you're tethered to a point in the past if it's causing you to basically be carrying around a set of negative emotions that are taking up space inside you. Space that could be put towards things that serve you better at this point in your life or are more constructive for you. And again, this is not something that I feel is a one size fits all at all. And I've met people and interviewed people myself for whom not forgiving something that was done to them is very much a way of protecting themselves. It's a mode of self-preservation, because they know themselves well enough so that if they were to forgive, they fear that they would then land on a slippery slope of assuming too much responsibility for what happened to them. So the choice to not forgive remains as kind of a bookend and a gate that they feel strongly about having to keep. And if that is their emotional journey, then that is right and safe for them. And that's where I feel so strongly about empowering survivors to know that, to make that distinction for themselves. It's such a personal journey. And it just enrages me to think of people being pressured to jump over any of these incredibly important steps in emotional processing. For me, anger was so important. It was so important to sit in my rage and to acknowledge that what had done to me was horrifically unfair and harmful. And anger is the right response to injustice. It is the right response. And if we aren't angered by injustice, then we are at a risk of sitting by idly when injustice occurs, when harm, when harm is perpetrated.
I'm glad I asked you that, Thordis. I think that's perfect. I think it, and I also think it's a very thin blade and it becomes like a insurmountable to-do list of, or you, as you well put, it's a deadline to get to instead of a process that is going to be nuanced and also changes as we experience more things, and including, having parenthood or partnership, or like a survivorship is a big journey, and it's not an easy checklist. Can we, so let's get, because they'll go watch your TED Talk and read the book. Okay, so then what happens next? Let's go. What happens next?
What happens next in my life?
Yes, because you already started doing so many more things. So we got to hear the current stuff. Other than like the kids.
Okay, yeah, no. I think I know where we can drop this pin now.
Yeah.
Well, having been kind of brutally, what to call it, like ignited into this work, at such a young age, I felt called to try my best to prevent it from occurring in other people's lives. So I've, started to develop a strong sense of a calling, if you will, to violence prevention and to gender equality work. And so for years I did that. I was at the head of the board of the largest women's shelter in Reykjavik, and I was writing articles and doing activist work. Until I realized, I think it was probably about 15 years ago now, I think it was in 2010, that this emerging form of digital and technologically facilitated abuse was actually cementing intimate partner relationships that were violent. So the women that were coming to the women's shelter were telling a new story. It's never been easy to leave an abuser, we know that. But they were saying now, I can't possibly leave him because he has sex tapes and he has nude photos and he's been filming me without my, knowledge or consent. And it was in the period between 2007 and 2010-11 that basically the majority of the, industrialized world joined Facebook and these social media platforms. So all of a sudden, for victims of intimate partner violence, it was very plausible that, your abusive spouse could effectively strip you on the town square, if you will, because all of a sudden the town square was online and all of your family, all of your colleagues, your whole social network was on one platform. So if we take Facebook as an example, like if your abusive spouse would put that nude photo of you on Facebook and tag everyone it's going to be, an insurmountable kind of, humiliation and damage to your reputation, etc., that wasn't possible before everyone was in one place, I mean, we could have done this back in, the early 2000s or even back in the late 90s. We could put nude photos of people against their will on the internet, but there was no centralized space where everyone was. So, if you put it on some obscure porn site, chances were it wasn't going to do a lot of damage. But now, the threat was so real that women were just being locked into these destructive relationships where they saw no way out, because at least there was, a bearable day or two, like in their violent relationships where the violence was kind of dormant. But if that picture would go online, they would never escape it or forget about it for the rest of their life. Like, there would not be a day where they could be free from that, because the internet does not forget is what the mantra was back then. Luckily today we have more tools to kind of take back our image and to combat image-based sexual abuse, such as sharing someone's nude entails. So today there are more ways to help people that are victimized in that way. But certainly when I was turned on to this subject, it felt so lifelong of a sentence for victims of digital violence. And that's how I slowly but surely turned to that field. And in 2020, I was one of the founding members of what we call the Nordic Digital Rights and Equality Foundation, where we do exactly that. We are exploring, the realm of cyberspace with regard to how it's shaping and affecting human rights and our ability to partake in democratic processes and live our lives, both personally and professionally, online.
Yeah, so exciting, Thordis. I love that part, because it's so, for our listeners and for yourself, some of the recent projects, I reached out to a streamer on Twitch who was suffering from stalking and even showing up at events and then getting, it becomes pervasive and never ending in the digital space. As you said, it just swirls around us, and you're everywhere all at once, right? Mm-hmm. And it feels, I think, I don't know, that was not what I went through, but I know it can easily feel completely overwhelming, and just like where do I even start, right? How do I start to have an identity? But so can you talk about some of the goals for the foundation and any other projects? Start with that one. Like, what are some of the most recent things you all are working on?
Well, we are deeply disturbed by how AI and algorithms are being wielded against people to cause harm and to perpetuate abuse. So we are, for example, very alarmed by a city of, what's it called? It's called the Dublin City University research that came out last year that showed that the algorithms of TikTok and YouTube have been known to really amplify messages that are sexist and misogynist and actually promote sexual violence. So that was very disturbing. The study found that on average 23 minutes pass from a 16-year-old boy signing up for these platforms until he gets his first misogynist message. And if he is drawn in to this, which is kind of in human nature to do when we are met with something shocking, we're kind of drawn in. And if that's the case, then it very quickly escalates, and within 2 to 3 hours, 75% of your feed is misogynist and hateful content that undermines women's rights, from everything to choose what occurs in their own body, but also their right to vote, their right to work, and their right to say no to sexual advances. So these are some of the areas where we're deeply concerned. What type of activities being promoted in online spaces, because we know that shock and outrage content often is what the algorithms do promote. So we're very concerned, and we're fashioning advocacy messages and doing research in that area to pressure both the platforms and also legislative initiatives in the way of harnessing that and curbing hateful messages. We're also very concerned with undress apps and nudify apps that basically can turn any picture of any human being into a nude photo. But let's not be naive about this. It's not essentially, you know, an app or a technology that is gender neutral, because it's very much not. And I did a little experiment with it. I asked AI to make me a picture of a clothed man, and then I fed a Nudify app this picture of a fully dressed man. And what the Nudify app gave me in return was this man undressed. His head remained the same, but his body was now a woman's body undressed. So it just was such an incredibly clear example of how these apps are not made to be gender neutral, to undress just anyone. They are tools of gender-based violence made to humiliate women specifically and cause harm to them and their reputation.
Thordis, who are you getting to, like, I know obviously we're all ears here. We're in the fan club, but who's the biggest ask or reach that you're trying to get to hear your voice and be motivated to make some change? Like who are you after?
Exactly. Well, I have been, vocal about these matters and been invited to speak in some of the places of power, the EU, the UN, the European Council, etc. But what we're also doing and have been doing, my organization, is inviting the platforms to have a constructive dialogue about their responsibility and how to do better. So that's a part of our work, is to facilitate conversations between those who are writing the law and the legislation and those who are shaping the technology, because there has to be a dialogue between all of us. For it to be constructive in the end, for the end user, for us whose rights are at stake. And we're seeing some really troubling things occur. I mean, this year started off with Mark Zuckerberg announcing that hate speech was now basically okayed on Meta platforms to a degree we had not seen before. So all of a sudden, it's okay to call women household appliances. It's okay to call. It's profitable,
Thordis. That's the problem.
I know.
Hate sells best.
It's lucrative for sure, and so it's very important to counteract that with strong advocacy messages and hate speech legislation and to just make our voices heard. In the online space, and demand that it be the democratic venue it has every potential to be. But we have to safeguard it, and we have to protect it, and we have to be vehement about our rights in online spaces, because if we're not safe online, we're not safe anywhere. It's that simple.
Right, and it's the same thing where I don't know. I just feel so. I'm very motivated all the time, Thordis, but to do more stuff. But it just seems like if only the platforms had been built with this concept as the center, like instead of money.
Oh God, yes, it would be a very different world.
If only it was built with the goodness in the center and the platform built around safety. But it doesn't matter whether it's putting better fixing environmental wrongs or anything that costs money, that involves safety or better, cleaner, more respectful. It gets done last instead of first, and it only gets done last if we push really hard and speak really loudly and sue a lot. Right, and write more laws and hope that the enforcement will come in more than just lip service. But anyway, I'm super excited about this project, and I'm certain some of our listeners may want to get involved. Is there anything that they can do to reach out to support what you're doing, or where you mentioned a few of I loved when you shared about, in Australia and the US, the restorative practices,
right,
organizations. Yes. So beyond in Iceland, my listeners, like, maybe they'll be like, this is my thing. I want to do this. So where can they get involved, or how?
Well, Well, they can certainly read more about what we're up to on our website. Nordic Digital Rights and Equality Foundation it's a mouthful, so obviously that's not what we go by every day. Like, we have abbreviated it to NordRef, so Nord, R-E-F. So nordref.org, and we're also on Instagram, which is one of the many platforms we're on, but we're most fun on Instagram. Let's just be honest about that.
That's awesome.
We're most active there, and we just have the most stuff there. So
Okay.
that would be places to start to just see what we're trying to achieve and what we're working towards. And right now, we're trying to equip frontline workers in the Nordic region who are receiving victims of gender-based violence. So like the frontline workers at women's shelters and places like that. We're trying to equip them with the new legislation of the European Union. For example, the AI Act, which is one of the acts that are being implemented that safeguard people from, AI facilitated harms. The DSA, which is the Digital Services Act, another really important one. And the third one being the Directive Against Violence Against Women. So these are jungles, like these are massive legislations that are hundreds of pages long. Obviously nothing for laymen like you and me to decipher and understand. And let alone for people who are swamped with frontline work, who are like literally working to save lives. So what we're trying to do is like just translate it into accessible bits of information for them to wield in their work. That is our latest. That is our latest project, and it's going really well. And it's fascinating to learn about how AI is affecting our lives for the better and worse. And I'm holding on tight. I think the next few years are going to revolutionize so many things that we know and so many things we take for granted. And it's going to be one hell of a ride, Katie. One hell of a
I'm
ride.
positive. I'm glad you'll be somewhere at the front of the Macy's parade with the whole thing going. I still come back to that.
With my Thor's hammer.
Yes, I love it so much. Yeah, no, I'm super. I think your journey is just. It's like all of us who decide. I loved hearing about when, you just had to fill every second because you were still counting the seconds. So rather than, fill them all, so they didn't. The TikTok was not so loud. The blink was not so loud, and and then you took the deep dive and really were bold and had that big conversation. I understand you don't recommend it, but I think it's admirable that you sat with it and you dug through it the way you did, because it seems to me like now you're taking that restlessness and using it in many, many good ways to carve out where we need to go next.
Well, may I say thank you. And may I also say that I am standing on the shoulders of giants in my work and in my own personal healing journey. And I think that, obviously there were trailblazing people that came ahead of me that, I'm reaping the benefits of their hard work. And you're one of them, Katie.
Yeah.
You are one of them. And I have to say that, like, for someone like you to put, a word into the global vocabulary, the word date rape is such an incredible feat and such important work. And it is, I think, one of the aha moments for me as a young person was that, date rape, the concept, enabled me to step out of my myths and misconceptions about, perpetrators being these armed masked lunatics, and that it could be someone you're on a date with and it could be your boyfriend. So I just want to extend my warmest gratitude and admiration to you and your work and your legacy, Katie.
Yeah, but Thordis, I think that's where our stories are a lot alike. I mean, my quote, Prince Charming, not a lot of people know, he came from Greece. He went to he spoke 3 languages fluently. He played a great game of soccer. He could play the piano, sing. Like, he was Mr. Perfect. And so it was just that train wreck of my entire soul and body being violated that just could not sit. It was just, it just went too far, and I think I'm just too feisty. I've always been feisty, but that was like this is just not going to work for me. And so,
aren't we glad that it didn't work for you? I mean, of course we hate the fact that you had that journey and that was done to you, of course.
Yeah.
But the fact that you fought back the way you did has certainly shaped the discourse ever since. So thank you for that.
I guess the last thing is I definitely hope that you are going to keep being feisty as well. And we'll continue to bond with our twins, because you're going to catch up to me in no time fast. And you're going to be like, oh my God, what do I do now with teenagers? But yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And I think you started off the conversation, and it's kind of where we need to land, is let the beautiful people, whatever the skills and talents they have, let's just hope we can push them into seeing the opportunities for good that they can do with those, right?
Absolutely. And I do wanna empower those who are listening now, because it's been a really hard week for survivors. It's been the week of the Epstein files for survivors.
Right.
And so we've seen examples of leadership that is bending over backwards to cover up and silence the truth. And I want to shed a ray of light into this terrible week and point out that another sitting president, the president of Iceland, used this very week to open up about her own experience of having been sexually abused as a child between the ages of 7 and 11. And she was so vulnerable and brave in sharing that information this week, and just showed that leadership can also choose to uncover truth. It can choose to invite us to unite in solidarity with those who have been harmed, as opposed to turn our backs on those that have been harmed and deny them a course of action and justice. So I just want to empower those listening with the notion that it is up to us what type of leadership we choose for ourselves. So that is something we can always keep in mind when we vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're lucky we both live in countries where that's possible for women.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, my goodness, thank you so much, Thordis. It's such a pleasure. If only you lived down the street, but it is not the case. So hopefully we'll get to meet each other in person.
I don't think I'd be let into your country right now, Katie, not with the last 5 years of social media presence.
I'd be let in. We can come to you.
Yes, please come. We have cookies. We have cookies and dried fish, if you're into that.
Cookies and catfish? Did you say catfish?
Cookies and fish jerky.
Okay, fish jerky is a new thing for me.
Katie's hard pass on the fish jerky.
I don't know how to fish jerky. I can do toasted
it's
jerky.
very Icelandic. It's very Icelandic. I'll let you try, but this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Thanks. Keep up all the great work. And for all of our listeners, just like I said, keep that journal going. Lots of little nuggets, come back, rewind, listen again, especially when Thordis introduced her correct saying of her name. That part was magic, so rewind again. But until another episode, the healing is all your own, and yet we are all together as survivors and supporting one another. So take care and stay safe, and I'll see you in a week.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Dear Katie. These conversations are never easy, but they're always necessary, and we're so grateful you chose to share this space with us. If something in today's episode stirred something within you, please give yourself what you need. Whether that's rest, support, or just a deep breath, you're not alone. To hear more stories, resources, and survivor-centered conversations, be sure to subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We want to hear from you, so please leave us a review and share your feedback. Your thoughts help us create episodes that resonate with listeners. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.